All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be looking at solving equations, specifically one step. We're breaking up our lesson into 2 days, but really, since it's block scheduling, we're going to do both days. We'll talk about your assignments on Google Classroom. So solving equations is like the most important concept skill that you need to be successful in 8th grade math as well as in a high school. So many different branches of math comes off of solving equations. So we're going to start off basic. Now you have most of this knowledge from 7th grade, but there's a few tweaks for 8th grade that we'd like to share. So of course we've got our addition property of equality. Simply means if you add something to the left side of the equation, you must also add it to the right side. So adding 5, adding 5, adding 2, adding 2. The same thing works with subtraction. If you're going to subtract 3 from the left side, you must subtract 3 from the right side. So remember, you're taking excellent notes, and if you fall behind, you can just back it up a little bit and catch up. So when we talk about it, inverse operations, or specifically the additive inverse, this is how, or the work that we're going to show, and that's what I was just mentioning. Add 3 to both sides. Subtract 5 on both sides. And the reason we do that is because if I have a positive 3 and a negative 3, we know that that is going to zero out or cancel out or cross each other out or essentially just kind of disappear, as some students like to say. So if I have a subtract 5, of course I'm going to add 5. And again, this is the work that I'm going to perform on the left side of the equation and also the right side. And you get the picture again, right? Because they disappear, cancel out, become 0, whatever phrase you'd like to use to help you out. All right, we've got just a few questions to do together on this first lesson. Again, it's just adding, subtracting, the basics. So my problem is presented to me as x subtract 6 equals 12. My goal is to solve for x. Now in doing so, I notice that the original problem has a subtract 6. So my additive inverse, or my inverse operation, would be to add 6 on both sides. Now, in 8th grade, we're very specific about this. Please make sure that you are actually showing how it lines up nice and neat here, please. Meaning it's not underneath the equal sign, it's not underneath the x, it's underneath the digits, the numbers. So x is 18. Now, on the problems for your homework, we are going to ask you to check your answer. Now, checking your answer is really when you get to the more advanced problems. But if you can check now, it's going to really help you out later on. We'll talk about the check as we progress. So, for example, on this one, if x is 18, you would write 18 subtract 6 equals 12. And, of course, that gives you 12 equals 12. All right, on this problem here, y plus 7 equals negative 9. My operation is add 7, so it means my inverse operation is to subtract 7 on both sides. Lined up nice and neat. Some students put like this line all the way down. I don't do that. I just ask my students to line up the equal signs. Negative 9 and negative 7. Again, those are the same sign, so I add my digits and it stays negative. We talked about those rules the first week of school. If you were to check it again, you would write negative 16 plus 7 equals negative 9. Do a little bit of work, you would get negative 9 equals negative 9. All right, on this one right here, I'm very picky about this. Some teachers aren't. I like having it with the variable on the left side. And the reason that is so is because when we get to our inequalities, and you should have had some experience with inequalities in 7th grade, you're going to go ahead and be able to do the graphing portion just a little bit easier. So if you can keep it consistent with your variable on the left instead of the right, it could help you out throughout your schooling career. So the way that I do it is, well, I just put an equal sign 2 on the right side. So 5 plus x equal sign 2 on the right side. Now when it's presented to me like this, remember I'm still going to do my inverse operations. So I've got a positive 5. So the way that I undo a positive 5 is to subtract 5. And I'm going to do that underneath the correct digits. Underneath the subtract 5 and underneath underneath the 5 and underneath the 2. This gives me an x is equal to, now remember, these are different signs, so I need to take the difference or subtract and take the sign from the greatest absolute value. So that's right, x equals -3 is the correct value. Now, when you're going to check it, though, you would check it in its original form here. So I would write 2 equal sign 5 plus -3. Well, really, it's 5 subtract 3. All right, same strategy here. It says plus 26, so my inverse operation is to subtract 26 on both sides. Now, how did I get -41? Well, isn't it from our rules? They're both negative, so they have the same sign. So I add them together to give me the 41, and then I take the common sign, negative sign. So -41. If you were to check it again, it would be -41 plus 26 equals -15. You do a little bit of subtraction, and you get -15 equals -15. All right, we talked about this as well with our integer rules. Remember, it was on your quiz just the other day. This again is called adding the opposite. Now, students struggle on this type of problem when they don't simplify it first, which means they try and go directly to the inverse operations, and that is incorrect. So I'd like you to write it as y adding, because remember, adding the opposite, and the opposite of -5 is 5. So it would look like this. Y plus 5 equals 7. Now it's an appropriate problem, so I need you to go ahead and subtract 5 from both sides. If I subtract 5 from both sides, that, of course, would give me an answer of 2. Excuse me. And then if you were to check it, remember, you'd take it the original where it says y, so you'd put 2 subtract -5 equals 7, which really becomes 2 plus 5, and 7 equals 7. Now on this one here, it's not really adding the opposite, it's just cleaning it up. Because a lot of the times when students have too many signs, it gives them a little bit of struggle, frustration. They don't know how to complete the problem. So instead of adding -3, some students find it easier when it's presented to them as just a subtract 3 problem. So it's kind of going backwards if you think about it. When it's presented to students like this, it's a little bit easier to do adding the inverse operations, the additive inverse. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So that's going to give me n is equal to 5. So if I were to check it again, I would write, sorry, it's not showing up, 5 add -3, or really just 5 subtract 3, right? And that gives me 2 equals 2. Hey, look at that. We're already done with day 1. Nice and quick, sweet, and to the point. Again, most of it is review already. So again, adding, subtracting in order to solve your equations. All right, be awesome.